And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and give a warm welcome to our moderator, Michael Orlowski.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you to those who are with us here on campus, and as well as those of you who are joining us here online. My name is Mike Orlowski, and I'm the dubbing stage engineer for Full Sail University, and I'm hosting the session titled A Conversation with Re-Recording Mixer Gary Rizzo. So please put your hands together and help me welcome our panelist, Gary Rizzo, sound re-recording mixer and 2009 Hall of Fame inductee.
Hey, thank you.
So Gary, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for coming out today. I appreciate that. And thank you for tuning in, everybody out there on the internet.
On the internet. So we have something special for you this morning.
Do you?
How well do you know your films?
I think I know them pretty well. I kind of QC everything after mastering everything, after mixing everything. So I think I'm ready to take on whatever challenge you have.
Little challenge.
Yeah.
Would you be able to pick out your movie in a crowd of other movies, like a children, just by the sound?
I don't know. That sounds like a challenge for sure.
Well, let's see if you're ready for Sound Off with Gary Rizzo.
Whoa.
Are you ready to play?
That's just somebody get me a print of that.
Yeah. I'm just sad that I don't have the microphone, so I could, I want to do the Bob Barker. So the way this is going to work, we have 6 lucky guests in the audience. We have 7 cards of films that you've worked on.
Okay.
We're going to play sound only, and you will choose from these 7 cards what the film is.
Oh, I get to choose.
Yes.
So it's multiple choice.
As well as the audience.
Okay.
And then we're going to compare and keep score.
Okay.
Praise you if you win, ridicule you if you lose.
Right. As will my client base.
I will.
Sure.
I will hand you the cards now. Are you ready for the first one?
Wait, let me take a quick look here. Okay. Is Office Space in here? No. Okay.
There should have been one just TPS reports.
Okay, right.
But it's not there. It's not there.
That would have been good. Okay. So there. Where's the other one? Excellent choices here. I don't know who picked these titles, but
It was not me. I can't take credit.
well done, whoever organized this. Okay. I think I'm ready.
All right. Now, you can only listen one time. There's no rewind and
There's
playback.
no rewind. There's no rollback.
There's no rollback. This. No.
It can't be a collective. Okay.
All right. So if you want to hold your hand up for quiet, you told me you like to do that.
Real quiet.
Go. Don't show your answer.
Oh no. I should hide my cards.
Are you ready?
Close to the vest.
Okay. Show us your answer.
Tron Legacy, without a doubt.
Let's see. Let's go to the tape to see.
What was the giveaway? I want to know for Riley what the giveaway was.
Is this?
Oh, no, it is.
There you go.
I mean, it sounded a little bit more technical than the other. I mean, the other options were like How to Train Your Dragon, which probably would not
Do I have that in my
sound.
list? I don't think I have that card. Oh, I do. Okay.
So, I mean, out of the power of deduction, I
Well,
picked Tron.
let's see if you both are right. You both picked the same one. Here we go. Well done, both of you. So,
There you go.
Riley, you get 800 points for being right. You actually lose 500 points for being right. You're supposed to get it wrong to win. Sorry, that's just the way this
like
works.
Jim
Yes.
Carrey comedy bit, right? With the points don't matter, and
At the end, you get to read the credits and the voice of
Right.
the character that I choose. You know how the game works.
okay, good.
So let's talk about Tron. What was it like mixing this movie?
This was a whole load of fun to work on. working for director Joe Kosinski, who is outstanding. I've done probably 2 or 3 films for him, and he's got some other really good projects coming up over the horizon. I don't think we can talk about specifically what they are, but he's a really, really talented filmmaker. He comes from an architecture background, and he's all about these interesting structures of elements, not only within the picture, but within the sound and manipulation of those elements once you get into the mix. So what jumped out to me in that little sonic playback was the filter sweep right at the beginning after the crowds. You hear this huge amount of crowds come in, and then this big filter sweep kind of wipes it all out, so you can very quickly rack your sonic focus into the building of that bike. And then the bikes themselves have a huge vocabulary of when they're moving and they're twisting and they're turning and they're jumping and they're landing, and they have weight and they've got scale, and they also have a whole lot of speed to them as they go out. I always think you need to have recently I've been using this in all the Dunkirk interviews and things. If every sound has a pace, meaning the amount of momentum it has and the way it is propelling the mix, it has a pulse, meaning the amplitude, the volume, the way that it kind of hits you, and a purpose. Where is the purpose in terms of the story and the carrying of our mix through that story? If it has a pace, a pulse, and a purpose, then you've got a sound that really is going to work in your mix. If it doesn't have really, if it's missing any of those elements, then you got to question, why are we using this sound? Why is it here? But also, Tron Legacy was, I believe, the first Dolby 7.1 mix that went out. 7.1. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the very early ones that was commercially released in Dolby 7.1.
So when you moved from 5.1 to 7.1 and the side surrounds became a possibility, and specific, talking about purpose of sound, and that, which in my mind leads to placement. How did you start making that decision where it was either in the front or the back and now it's in the sides? Like when did you start making those choices of like, oh, let's put this on the side of the room?
Well, the first thing was for me to evaluate the format. Like, okay, yes, we have 4 surrounds. It's very easy to say, but like, how do they strike me? Everything has an emotional quotient to it and how it strikes the audience and how it plays against the film itself. So I just listened to the format, and of course I have lots of friends at Dolby, so they allowed me a lot of margin to take the time to experiment, to listen and try things, and just take the time before you're actually on the clock to actually execute. So I was ahead of the curve with that by having some experimentation time. I personally find that the side surrounds play a little bit more as the traditional 5.1 surrounds versus the back wall surrounds. The back wall surrounds really kind of help you if you're trying to throw something literally over your head from the back of the back wall to the front screen. And me personally, I use it almost a little bit more mono than stereo off that back wall. You don't have ears on the back of your head, but you have one ear on each side of your head. So you're going to perceive that stereo balance on the sides a little bit more than you will in the back. And that's not to break down the format at all or to take slight at it. It's what it is, and it's my perception of it. That said, this film uses huge arenas as sets, and they cheer and they actually say words that are relevant to the story. Disc wars, they chant. And so what we would do also with the PA announcement was to sell the size of the arena. We would do multi-tap delays and have different delay times and different speakers, and we really could kind of sell the idea of a wave of sound kind of coming at you. So the PA announcement starts in the center channel, goes wide, goes into the side surrounds, goes into the back surrounds, and then the next PA voice comes out. So it just added another layer of dimension in your theater, regardless really of how big or small your theater is.
Did that, the mix of the multi-tap delay, did that change, or did you do a sub-mix of that when you went down to a stereo version?
Well, everything was based upon the original mix. So I built all those delays when I was doing the initial dialogue pre-dub. We always break things down. We start with pre-dubbing each individual category, dialogue and sound effects and Foley and so forth. And so I built all the reverbs and treatments during the dialogue pre-dub, which was nice because I didn't have to worry about anything else getting in the way, and I could really focus in on those delays. Which ones do you want to hit, where, and why? Really kind of build that wave exactly as we wanted to do it. And of course, I printed that and I carried that forward into the final mix. The final mix was done natively in 7.1. Then we made the down mixes from there. Once we were finished mixing, make a 5.1 master and then a stereo from that. So I can't say that I necessarily changed the multi-tap delay times. I certainly did manipulate the levels of those delay returns, but the delay times to kind of properly represent the initial
space.
mix and the space, we kind of kept those delay times the same.
Now, one of the things that struck me about this film, as far as the behind the scenes, is was the first time that I heard of Renovator being crucial to removing a lot of the buzzing from the costumes.
True.
Were you a part of the team doing the restoration before the pre-dub?
I can't say part of the team. Yes. Did I actually do it? No. I was in on the very first temp where we were getting through the mix to play for a preview screening, but also we were doing analysis of these tracks and trying to figure out ultimately what do we need to do to get to our final mix and our final destination of the ideal master. And we kind of figured out at that point, we need to assemble a couple of people that have a thorough understanding of this software that actually can do a lot of this offline ahead of time before we start pre-dubbing. Mm-hmm. So we brought in Marie and Jonathan, who are dear friends, and they're in our Skywalker community. And we kind of tasked them with that, because to consume dub stage time, it's one of the more expensive arenas to be in during the post-production process. We just didn't want to consume our budget doing that alone, so we kind of had them go into a cutting room, basically, knowing roughly based on a couple of demos what we needed them to do, and apply that to all the problematic areas. That said, we always, and we still do when we do a process like this, carry the raw untreated in the event we need to get back to it. If we over-processed it, great, let's go back a generation. That is really the gift of mixing in the box or working within Avid Pro Tools today, is that you can always go back very easily to the raw elements and say, whatever decisions we made in the past 2 weeks, forget it. Or strip it back anywhere in between. You don't just have to wipe everything, but you can go back to what you did yesterday, or just take the EQ off but leave the compression, or you can increase just the filter without changing the EQ at all. That's the beauty of mixing in the box. And so some of it was done in the box, but some of it was done on the console. In this case, DFC.
DFC. I know we have different consoles. On our stage, Full Sail, we have System 5. You mix on a System 5, but at Skywalker, you're on the DFC console. We have another movie, so if you'll grab your cards,
yes,
who's in the number 2 spot?
Number 2.
What's your name, sir?
Hunter.
Yep. All right. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Oh yeah.
Okay. I noticed you didn't grab the cards and shuffle them so knowingly as you did the first.
I was listening, yeah. I think I know what this one is, though. And I hope, yeah.
Have you selected?
I have.
All right, let's see your cards, Hunter. Or the one card.
Is it The Incredibles?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see, Gary.
I'm going to go with that was the Bong Saber sequence from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Let's see who's right.
Yeah.
I win.
You win.
I remember I was actually hanging out the day that they shot the initial footage of that, and Kevin was so excited that he took the video playbacks and started cutting the video playback footage that night. He was like, I can't believe this. I got Mark Hamill on set, and we're having a bong saber fight in my own movie. This is amazing. He was so excited.
So what is it like to go from a drama to a comedy, and how do you approach
variety is the spice of life, Mike.
I know.
It's every day. This is a kind of a big picture answer to that. Every day is a different challenge. Every day is a different puzzle, and you never really know what the solution is going to be. You don't know what the challenges are going to be that morning until you get in there and you figure it out, and you use all your tools and you use all of your experience to try and interpret what your director or picture editor or producer is asking of you, interpret their words, and then use your knowledge and your experience to deliver an answer. And hopefully, you know your tools well enough that the tools are transparent to the filmmakers that you're serving. Just because you have the tools doesn't mean that you have to use all the tools. You just, it's kind of like the dentist. Don't use the drill if you don't need to use the drill, okay? Just kind of scrape away and do what you need to do, but be effective and, be proactive and use your ears and go with your gut instinct. Your gut instinct is almost always right, and the answer is almost always on the screen. Mm-hmm. If you're stuck and you're like, why I can't hear the things that I want to hear in this sequence this quickly, make sure you're looking up versus looking down. It's very easy to get stuck here, but a very wise mixer, Richard Portman, once said, the answer is almost always on the screen. So
I've found that as well. If I'm ever looking down, you've always been the voice in my head. I'm like, look up,
head up,
look up at the screen. What I've found with comedies is that in the iterative process, if it gets a laugh, it gets frozen in time, and other things could change. But something that's received a laugh, even if it was early in a temp, it's there and ever present. And where in dramas, there's been the luxury of reiterating, even if it's just cleaning up, like it's a noisy piece of dialogue. But if it's been in a test screening and it's testing well and everybody's laughing, it just kind of freezes in time.
Yeah, it's harder to be quiet than it is to be loud. It's very easy to be loud. You can make things loud, and it almost masks elements itself, and the audience is probably to some degree louder than they would be in that quiet drama. So you're going to hide behind the audience a little bit, or there's a little bit more margin to be able to do some dramatic changes and things. You can get away with it versus a very quiet scene. There's nowhere to hide. There really is nowhere to hide. It's all right. It's all part of the challenge. That challenge that day is there's nowhere to hide.
There's nowhere to hide.
Well, then you got to use your EQs dynamically to find a way to get in and out of things is what the first instinct would be for me. How do I fix this? Well, I can't fix it by throwing things out, or I can't fix it by doing anything dramatic. I have to do slow moves to try and figure out how to get in and out of elements. But every challenge is different.
So you've done a number of films with Kevin Smith.
I have.
What is that collaborative process like?
Well, Kevin's hilarious. I think Kevin is he certainly likes for us to have a good time. He likes to be very inclusive of that. We've done so many that at this point he trusts us. I haven't done the last few for a variety of reasons. You never really know when things are going to continue and when things stop, just because of schedules and because of budgets and for a variety of reasons. But I still consider Kevin to be a friend and a collaborator. You reach out to him every once in a while and say, hey, do you think we can make this one work? There's rumors of another Clerks movie and, putting that band back together. And but I think that after doing as many as we've done, especially some of the larger scale ones that he's done, it's about having an initial spotting session where we get the big picture vibe from him. That's where the most information comes. And we take that, and then we're going to do some temps for him, and we figure out really what the overall dynamic and shape of the mix is going to be, and he's going to have a knee-jerk response. He's going to say, that cue needs to be bigger. That cue, I need to feel this moment more. The gravity of this cue isn't quite doing what I need it to do. Or he'll say other things like, it's all about their performances. These acting performances are crucial here. Let's just back out and get out of the way. And he can say something very simple like that, and we execute it very quickly. Tom Myers and I have this long history with him, and so it's hard to explain what a shorthand actually is. But I believe we have it, and I'm really looking forward to what he comes up with next. I love working for him, and I'll do it again anytime. He's a pleasure.
All right, number 3.
I gotta get my list.
3. He's getting his cards ready. What is your name?
My name is Adam.
Adam.
How's it going?
Going well. How are you doing?
Where are you? Oh, you're in the front.
Yeah,
okay,
right
great. I see you. I was looking for
You feeling good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think I'm gonna.
You think you're gonna get it?
Okay.
You think you got this?
You think so?
Is this a fair advantage here with seeing the laptop? Is
I was gonna say.
what's happening?
Maybe turn the screen. I don't want to.
Right, no giveaways, no cheating.
Don't want to split.
If I get negative points for getting one right, you shouldn't be able to look at the laptop.
Exactly.
You got 1 point on the last one.
I'm negative 499.
Hunter got 200 points for nice try. So they're winning.
Okay, they're
Here we
winning.
go.
Okay.
No, for sure.
You know for sure.
Yeah.
All right,
The end was
Yeah.
a dead
Yeah,
giveaway.
it kind of.
Interstellar.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, of course.
I'll see your Interstellar. That
Oh, there we go.
Here we go. Here's the scene.
was an excellent choice. Now, somebody made an edit in that. Somebody made a picture edit.
Yeah.
That was a bold choice.
Yeah.
That was a bold choice. I'm curious if Chris is tuning in right now, what he thinks of that picture edit. Actually, what happens in the picture edit is one of my favorite moments, and that's why I really recognize it, because it's a practical effect was used with McConaughey, where he was on a rig, a vibrating rig, and his voice was very naturally, emphatically modulating. And it wasn't a flange or a phase or anything, but it was just one of those roller coaster style. And it's frightening if you hear it in the theatrical dynamic of the mix. And this is one of the, I think I'll use grandest as my adjective. It's one of the grandest mixes that we've attempted to do, to go from that ejection sequence, which you're just hanging on that dialogue of eject, which is really the point, to the point where he can barely hear the command. He's barely conscious enough to get that command, which is you're with him in that moment, to go from that very loud to that very quiet, where you go from this very complex, lots of low end, lots of anxiety, lots of overwhelming information, to a single thread of a track where he is just struggling to even catch his own breath. And he's still physically shaking. Incredibly effective. And hats off to Lee Smith, our picture editor, and to Chris for constructing that, being the architect of that. For us, there was no question what needs to happen in that moment. You have to play that anxiety as big as you possibly can. And we have I have to say, one of the reasons I love working with this team is because we've developed our own kind of special sauce, for lack of a better term, that we use uniquely with Chris and on Chris's movies when we are doing final mixes, that allows us to do some unique, how do I want to put it? it's special sauce. There's something special in Chris's mixes that we just don't do with anybody else's mixes. It allows for a greater dynamic. It allows for a greater frequency response. It allows for a more emotionally effective mix. We have just a couple more tools at our disposal that we just don't always use. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say about that.
When you're working with a director that's willing to let some lines of dialogue go and feels strongly motivated that it's okay if the audience doesn't hear those words, the audience reaction is, I want to hear those words.
Right. What did you do, Rizzo? Yeah. What did you do? Oh, I get that. It's okay. I'm strong. I can handle that question. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And it's a bold choice. And what I like about working with Chris is he'll make bold choices. He will decide for you, really, the information that you need that ultimately drives a desire in you for something, whether you think it's, I want to hear more of this, or that's actually maybe a little bit of a misconstruing of what you think you want, because you actually got exactly what you needed. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody that said, I hated that movie. No, I don't know anybody that hates this movie. They may say, well, I wanted to know what he said at that moment. Well, but how did you feel in that moment? What was your emotion in that moment in terms of being in that environment and the dynamic that you have been led through? This movie works on so many different levels. It works, especially if you are a parent. This movie has a whole nother definition to it, I find.
Yeah.
And this movie can be interpreted in so many different ways. It means so many different things to so many different people. One of my favorites. Excellent choice.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love working with directors that are okay with production sound being noisy, and we're not going to go back in ADR just for the sake of clarity. It's just the message is still getting across. I just find it,
I'll say this. Chris is about honesty. Mm-hmm. He's about absolute honesty in the moment. Just because you have the tools, I said it before, just because you have the tools doesn't mean you have to use them. His belief is that you can very easily take the honesty out of a track by overworking a track, and meaning a production track. So go easy on it. It doesn't mean that we don't do anything to it. It means that we are very honest to it and to the intention of it. And if an actor says a line very lightly, by God, we're going to represent it exactly as that actor gave it to us. A lot of people say, what'd you do to Batman to make him sound like that? That's Bale. God bless him. That's Bale. And, we respected that performance. And we want him to have that performance. I mean, he and Chris developed that version of Batman and that version of Bruce Wayne. And, by God, we're going to represent that.
Okay, we have number 4. Where's number 4? All right, your name?
Andre.
Andre, what's up?
Here we go.
You ready?
There's.
So good.
I'm gonna go with The Incredibles. Is that right?
I'll go with The Incredibles as well. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. I'm pretty sure I know every sample of this mix. I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, it's that one's they're all special in their own unique way, but that one is particularly special to me. It was relatively early on in my mixing career, and it was a huge step forward. And I have to give some props to Randy Tom, my mixing partner on that one, for standing up for me and making sure I was, in the ring. and I gotta thank Brad. I saw Brad last week. I guess I can say it. This one is really fresh in my mind, even though it was an older mix in this list, because we just did a remaster of it for some future home video release that's happening. So it's very fresh. I just saw Brad, and we knocked out a couple of notes that maybe were some old outstanding notes that we always wanted to do. Not that the mix wasn't great originally. Yeah. We didn't change it. The mix is the same. It really is the same. We just did a couple little fine adjustments.
We're going to go on a little bit of rapid fire. We're moving to number 5.
Oh, here we go.
Your name?
Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
Taylor, where are you? Oh, there you are. I see you.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
That's actually one of the harder ones, I think.
It is.
It's harder to try. Are we going in like difficulty sequence? Is that what we're?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Taylor, what do you think?
How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's How to Train Your Dragon.
Let's see if we're right. And we're right.
I love that movie. That's a great one. Dean Dubois is the director on that one, and he's such a sweetheart. He is so not only a considerate person, but he's such a thorough, thoughtful storyteller. It's a privilege to be able to work for him. I missed the sequel. I was on something else. There was some scheduling conflict, but I'll knock on something, wood, marble, whatever it is, for number 3, that I'm going to get onto that one. But yeah, I remember that opening sequence was a very complicated sequence with lots of sound effects, but a beautiful music cue by John Powell, and then there's voiceover on top of it, and Jay Baruchel, I think that's the actor's name, and he's got this very particular voice to play the lead character, and it sits in this funny little frequency range, which is very endearing, but it was a very tricky sequence to kind of get in and out and still understand what he was saying. And the design behind Toothless is great. There's a beautiful musical sequence where they're doing this Black Stallion style, trading off and becoming friends, and that's a special one. That's a real special one.
You had to choose a path, one path being live action, one path being animated.
No.
Do you have a choice?
You can't make me choose that path. No, you can't. A film is a film. A film is a film, and different filmmakers have different methods of making films. It's kind of like saying, well, if you had to choose oils or watercolors, what would you choose? I guess, I don't know. Yeah. I'm in my blue phase.
You're in your blue phase.
No, I you know what I like is the variety in this job.
Yeah.
Again, every day a different challenge. Different filmmakers, different mediums, different expectations. Chris, so far we've only mixed in 5.1. Joe Kaczynski, Atmos, always. And we're flying sound all over the room, and it's amazing. Some of my favorite music mixes we've done with Joe, because he's so ambitious in using the sonic space that we have. We've got synth elements all over the ceiling and things flying around you. With Chris, it sits right on the screen. That's where we want it. It's kind of like being an interior designer, I suppose. Some people want to go with these bold, vibrant colors. Other people want to go with very traditional.
Timeless.
Yeah, classics.
Number 6.
Number 6. Who's up?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
your name?
Not much.
All right. Here we go.
There's a special quality to the low frequencies in that one. I'm pretty sure I know what this one is. You want to go first?
I'm going to say The Dark Knight.
Oh. I'm actually going to go with Inception.
Ooh, let's see who's right.
Same filmmaker, though, so it could... The Dark Knight. Oh, wow. It was the bike. I lose.
I was wondering if that.
But there's a magical element of the low end in that bike that is very, very special. And hats off to Richard King, our supervising sound editor. And that's there's some good stuff in that frequency range. There's some good stuff in the low mids, and that oscillation. That's a big one. The Dark Knight.
What scene of Inception?
I thought it was actually the earlier dream, one of the first dream sequences when we were 2 layers in the dream leading up to, before he falls back in the tub, when I thought it was leading up to one of those explosions in there. And again, we were focusing that scene in some similar frequency ranges in there. That's why I thought without the visual, maybe that's... And in those mixes, we're always kind of blurring the line between design and music and what is what. And so similar structure, different scene, but that's the bike. Now that I know, it's like, of course that's the bike. Of course.
That's how it works.
The Bat Pod. That's all right. I lose. You guys win. You win. What's the penalty?
Oh, we'll talk about it later.
Do I get dropped from the top of Full Sail Live? Is that a...
What you don't know is we have that outfit, and that you will wear to.
Oh, you do. Okay, good.
To the ceremony.
To the
later
ceremony,
today.
red carpet.
Yeah.
Well, do I get to walk with Troy up the red carpet if I'm wearing?
If you'd like.
That's funny. That is hilarious. Where do we go from here?
Well, I believe we're going to open it up to the audience for question and answers. We definitely want to give a moment to take questions. We have one right here first.
So with all the panels, I've noticed that all the Hall of Fame inductees are very outgoing, bubbly personalities. And I was just wondering...
Except me, I broke the mold. I'm
yeah,
just like,
no, just so
like,
drab.
Forget it. Are we done yet? Are we?
But I was just wondering, in the industry, what is the rough percentage of skill versus just general likedness?
I think you need both. You can't not be able to deliver. You can't not be able to produce. And you can't be stumbling through it to get it done. At the same time, people, I think, I can't say this is a generalization, but they want to be, if you're going to be in a dark room with somebody for 10 hours a day or beyond, you might as well be in a room with somebody that you like, that you enjoy spending that time with. But that doesn't always work. Some people like to have a real bulldog in the chair to say, yep, that guy may not be the nicest guy, but he's going to give you the best track I can come up with. That's okay, too. You know, some people like that. It's hard to come up with a single answer, but I want to believe that, you know, there's a balance, that you can be a pleasant person to be around and be able to execute and kind of be the whole thing and be versatile.
I mean, there's something to be said of confidence. Like when you're reaching forward to grab the knob, if you're like shaking and unsure of it, and you have this kind of feel that you have uncertainty about what you're doing, then that would, you know, kind of gets magnified in the room. So as long as you might not know, or I mean, I've done that where I don't know where we're going with the mix,
right?
But I'll grab you know, like confidently grab and try to figure it out and like feel like.
And experimentation is wonderful. You know, you can do something on a whim and see what happens, see what comes out of it, and then, hey, what was that one little element in there that we really liked? You'll discover things that maybe you would not. Did I just knock my microphone over? That maybe you wouldn't have thought of before. That and just even soloing through elements to figure out what you have or what you don't have or what you need, you'll find some gems like, oh, that could really be helpful.
Another question, I believe over here. Yeah.
Hi.
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 My name is Robert.
Hello, Robert.
How are you?
Amazing. How are you?
Great. I'm in the Entertainment Business Master's program here.
Ah, good.
And my question is about Dunkirk. What were some of the particular challenges with working on Dunkirk?
Well, I had Tom Hardy in a mask again, huh? Again. I remember when the first email came in. Okay, so we're starting up another show. Great. What is it? Oh, it's a war movie. And this is from the first picture assistant. We're trading some emails. Chris wants to send you some files ahead of time to look at before we get on to the first temp. Okay, great. What is it? I reply. He goes, oh, it's Tom Hardy in a mask. I thought, my email is clearly backed up. The cache is all backed up from 3 or 4 years ago. This can't. Nope, he puts it on in reel 1 and takes it off in reel 5, and that's that. That said, Tom Hardy is all synchronous production recordings in Dunkirk. That is, even though he's wearing the mask, we're back to the original concept of that is honesty. That is real. That is him in that mask. Just fix it and do whatever you can do to maximize its clarity. Just do it. And whatever it is, it is. And it is synchronous. Which, looking back at it, you're like, we so easily could have had him in and redone it all. Mm-hmm. But one of the philosophies that Chris has always had is if you bring the actor in, they're going to do it the same way. If they're a good actor, they're going to give you the same the same greatness and the same losses that are in the original performance of it. So if for whatever reason an actor drops the end of his line, you bring him in for ADR, he's going to drop the end of that line again. It's the same problem. Yeah. You might as well use the honest synchronous recording versus just drop a loop in for the sake of dropping a loop in. Other filmmakers are really different though. Other filmmakers say, no, I like the purity of the ADR. I really want to have that so I can set it exactly where I want it. Or I want to set this character further back than I originally thought. So use the ADR and put more space on it rather than degrade the original perspective of a production track.
So I will say you're tied. There were 5 correct guesses from the audience.
Oh.
5 correct guesses for you.
That's right. The real penalty is when I get back to Chris next week. He's going to be like, how did you get The Dark Knight wrong? No, Mr. Rizzo. No.
I have a fun trivia question for the audience to see if we can give the win to the audience. Okay. Does anyone know the movie that inspired Gary to get into this career?
Oh. This is for the Super Rizzo fans out there. No, but that's a good guess. No, that's a great guess.
Great guess.
Can I just brag about my mixing partner for just a second? On Dunkirk, Stellar, and Dark Knight Rises, I had the privilege of mixing with a guy named Greg Landecker. Mm-hmm. Who is, if you know anything about film mixing, he is a legend of film sound mixing. He's won 3 Academy Awards, the first of which, I forget which one came first, but theatrically on their release. But he won for the original mix of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then Empire Strikes Back, and then a few years later, he won for Speed. Not to say that Oscars, equal magnitude per se, not literally speaking. He is a tremendous mixer, and he is the sweetest personality. He's a dear friend of mine, and Dunkirk was his retirement film. So after 48 years in the business, he chose ahead of time, this is the director I want to work for last, this is the film I want to do last, and this is the crew, this is the team, this is it, this is my exit. And he went out with literally an explosion. And we were joking around, actually, that last explosion in the film, it's like, this has to be the loudest explosion you ever mixed. This has to be it. This is the final one of your career.
Would you like to share the movie that got you started?
Yeah, sure. If nobody got it, we had 2 guesses. No. Go ahead. No, got it. No, that's okay, though. That's okay. I worked on restorations of all those, but it actually was Disney's Beauty and the Beast. And although all those movies affected me and those mixes are all outstanding, there was just a particular moment in time in my life when I was very unsure of myself and where I was and my trajectory in life and my maturity and where was I going and what am I doing? What am I going to school for? What is my life trajectory? And I was at the right theater at the right time in the right seat, and had this moment where, although a relatively simple animated film, a musical, you would think it could be easily described as that. Like, I heard this depth in this mix. And it was not only the glory of the music and how fantastic that sounded, but it was the details of the Foley that jumped out to me, and the perspectives and the depth and the reverb and the dialogue mixes. And oh my God, Terry Porter and crew, outstanding. Mark Mangini was the sound designer on it. Oh, wow. Amazing work, and it really spoke to me. I've heard all those mixes, Star Wars and Blade Runner, and they sound so good. And they definitely were landmarks for me and benchmarks that I wanted to be able to grow to. But for some reason, in that moment in time, Beauty and the Beast was just the moment that I had. And oddly enough, this year, and Mark and I are now friends. We've been friends for a number of years. Mark Mangini is nominated this year for Best Sound Editing on Blade Runner 2049. And, I'm on a ticket with Dunkirk, so we're seeing each other here. It's just kind of like... is this happening? What is happening right now? So it's really full circle. Yeah. And I'm so thankful to him. And I share that appreciation with him as often as I see him. And he's always like, stop, I know what you're about to say. I'm like, I don't care, I love you, come here. It's the Gary Jones comes out at me. Just wrap my arms around him.
I always love that story about Beauty and the Beast, because my film that piqued my interest was The Lion King, particularly the last drum hit.
That drum.
And it just threw me. I didn't know. I was like, how did they do that? How did they get such a big sound? And it just stuck with me forever.
And the good thing about that drum in particular that I noticed, what really communicates it to me, is the fact that it works in every format. Like, I went to see it when Lion King first came out. I was at EFX. Mike and I have a little common history in our career trajectories there. I was at EFX when Lion King came out, and I went to the El Capitan, which is the primary Disney premiere theater in Hollywood, and I saw it in its grandiose 5.1, and then I went to a multiplex so I could hear the LTRT, and I was doing all that stuff. But it works. That drum always works. Like, they're not using too much of the sub only. They're not using only the main channels. It translates down to VHS. Like, Terry Porter and those guys, they're masters. They are absolute masters. And he's still doing it. He's mixing at Paramount now with Anna, and he's another hero. Yeah, he's a hero.
Yeah. Next question.
So we have a question on YouTube. Ben is a recording arts graduate, and he's saying, we've heard all week long about mentors and finding a mentor, and he's wondering, who's been your mentor and why?
I have so many mentors. I mean, I mentioned Randy earlier. Randy was a huge mentor. Gary Rizzo is still a mentor and an inspiration and a friend. He's one of the most, he's crazy talented. Both those guys, crazy talented. Tom Johnson, crazy talented. Laura Hirschberg, peer. She's outstanding. Michael Samanek, dear friend, wildly talented. I think he's got like 4 CAS nominations this year. It's crazy. There are so many. I'm trying to think. Inspirations, Scott Milan is an inspiration. Terry Porter's an inspiration. I'm trying to think of like a true mentor. Even Mike Minkler has been a mentor to me. He's outstanding. His mixes have been so good for so long. JFK and talk radio and all the way through to Chicago and Dreamgirls. And there are many. I hope that answered the question. There's never one.
A couple questions up in front. Oh, you got the mic.
Yeah. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Alejandro. I'm in the recording arts program. So, Gary, my question is, what were some of the mistakes that you make coming young into the industry, and like the tribulations that you face growing into the industry? And if you could talk a little bit about that and how do you change across the years?
Right. One of the, I'll call it a mistake, but Full Sail loves to tell the story of me getting myself interviews, even when I was still a student before I graduated. They love to talk about some of the crazy antics that I did to get somebody's attention. I actually, when I was trying to get a job at Buena Vista Sound, based on Beauty and the Beast and Terry Porter and his crew, I was trying to get the attention of the general manager at the time, and so I actually made I remember I made a mug. After I made the initial contact, I said, I'm going to send you something. He's like, okay. So I'm sure he assumed it was a resume. It was a mug with like my face on it, holding a coffee mug, like, let me pour your coffee, I sent a big box of custom-made pens, like, I'll work for you at Buena Vista Sound, Gary Rizzo, please hire me. And it was clearly over the top. Clearly. And I think I even got a phone call from the GM at the time, and he was like, I hear you, please stop.
Yeah.
Please stop. So in hindsight, I think I have the right to say, like, too far, that was a mistake, too far. But it is a funny story to tell, so I feel like I can share it here. But I really wanted to work, and I wanted to work in that community, and I wanted to surround myself with those people, and at least I communicated that. And by God, I got my interview. It didn't go as I expected or as I wanted, but I got the interview. So I feel like moderately successful, but not 100%, but that's okay. That and I know I was impatient. And that bit me a couple of times. That and don't take things personally. Work really hard, but don't take it personally. I know I'm a softie. I know I'm a very emotional person. I'm a baseball fan too. So if the Giants are like hitting too many foul balls, I'm just like, stop. But that's okay. It's okay to be sensitive, but don't take the work stuff personally. Let the failures roll off your back. And I said this yesterday, and I believe this is really good advice. When you do crash, because it's inevitable, you will crash at some degree, whether it's a mixing failure, a creative failure, whether it's a technical failure as an assistant, like, I really botched that thing. Recover. Because I assure you that if the recovery is more spectacular than the failure, that's what people will remember. People go, oh, wow, that was like a phoenix that just rose up. Like he or she picked themselves up and in the most glorious way possible, followed through, came through, finished the job with style and flash, and that was awesome. Make the recovery more spectacular than the failure. Everybody likes to watch the train wreck, but I like it when the train kind of puts itself back together, I
believe we have another question. Who has one? There's the mic.
Hey, so my name is Martin. I'm part
Martin.
of the Recording Parts program. First of all, Tron, one of my favorite movies.
Really?
Visually,
Tron Legacy?
Ah, wow.
Just sound-wise, everything. Like, when I watched that, I was like, that's one of the things that got me into doing sound, just because it's just
Really?
crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love all the sounds, the intricacies, everything.
Joe's a joy to work with and for. He really is.
But my question is, what do you think the hardest part of your job is, and has that changed over the years?
Well, yeah, it has changed over the years, because the hardest part of the job I used to believe was the lack of everything being automated, and the fact that you had to remember all of these details on top of running the room, on top of like facilitating your filmmaker and communicating with your filmmaker. You had to remember all these other millions of details. And now, as Pro Tools has matured and console automation has matured, that part of the job has gotten easier and easier, where the computers are managing all of that, especially if you are in the box. I don't particularly like to mix entirely in the box. I like a hybrid setup, but I do a hybrid setup where I don't have to take nearly as many mix notes. I mean, I have boxes of mix notes from 97 that go through about 2006, 10 years of mix notes, and then they start to dwindle after 2006. The hardest part of the job, time management is pretty hard, because you never really, if you love this craft as much as I do, you never really finish. Somebody says, stop, you're done. Look at the time. So you have to manage your time. And your filmmakers like it when you manage the time, when nobody has to manage it for you. Not to say that that's particularly hard, but it's important to do. Sometimes people management can be hard. sometimes, and it doesn't happen often anymore, but sometimes there are people that kind of bring ideas that maybe you don't always agree with. Not to say that you will always get your way, because you don't, but sometimes managing some of those ideas that maybe they need a little more management than others. Some people have bad ideas, some people have good ideas, and you want to, you want to nurture the good ideas that are in the room. But you're always serving your filmmaker. You ultimately are making their film, and you want to be a collaborator. But, I've been really fortunate, and I know it, and I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Yeah. I've had some wonderful creative opportunities, and it's hard to pick out the bad in that. I hope that answered some of the question. Yeah.
Remember early mixing, I had a mixing partner, this guy named Claudio, and if I was doing something and he felt like I got it, he would just say, "Beautiful." And that meant like, okay, stop, move on.
Right, it's easy to
I still have that playing in my head at times where I'm like, I think I'm going, beautiful. And I'll just say it and move on, and then we'll see how.
That's good.
I believe you have a question.
Hi, my name's Logan, and I'm in film.
Hi, Logan.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Wisdom and knowledge. I saw both Interstellar and Dunkirk in IMAX, and they were both one of the most incredible sound experiences I've ever heard in theaters. The docking scene in Interstellar was incredible.
That's a good one. Yeah, where we go to actual silence.
Yes, I mean, that blew my mind when I saw it, and I always remember that scene.
You're not always allowed to do that, theatrically speaking,
right.
Go to silence. It really is, it can be off-putting to the audience, where they're like, whoa, something is wrong.
And it was off-putting, but I thought it was fantastic.
But appropriately so. I mean, that was part of the dynamic of the film. Chris always said about Interstellar, we could have gone the way of sci-fi and whiz-bang and all these, futuristic spaceships and stuff, but we didn't. We went the way of kind of the shaking the trash can, We kind of made it to make it more frightening, to put you in a tin can versus putting you in a spaceship.
Yeah, and it was incredible. But basically my question is for movies like those that are, obviously a really intense sound experience, how long does it typically take you to mix a movie like that?
Well, it depends. A movie like that, it's hard to put it that way. I can tell you that on those films, what we typically do is that we do a first temp mix. After editorial has had their hands on, sound editorial has had their hands on it for a number of weeks. I can't speak for Richard's schedule for prepping for the first temp. But the way we do it on Chris's films is that we are basically final mixing on day one of the temp. Meaning we have our entire final mix console built out and all of our Pro Tools rigs built out for anything we could possibly need for a final sized mix. Even though we're going to get through this mix, the first temp, in about, I want to say 8 working days. I think sometimes we get a 9th day. There's always a playback day and a fixed day, but to get through the magnitude of Chris's films in that amount of time is not easy. But Chris is with us every day from 9 to 7. And, if we go into overtime, he's with us. He's never not with us. And he is conducting us like a conductor would conduct a score. And, we work on a scene until he's satisfied. And when he's satisfied, I can hear him say, yep, very good. Moving on. Here we go. And it's pleasant. It's great. How was that? Was that a good crit? He's probably like, that's not what I sound like. He's tuned in over there. It is what you sound like. But that's okay. It's loving. It's, very good. Moving on. If you're waiting for this big, that's amazing guy, we don't get a whole lot of that. No. That's okay, though. That's the energy that we have on our crew. It's consistent. We know what it is, and it's part of the shorthand, It's part of the shorthand from Chris that says, we've got more to do. Let's keep going. And I like that. Let's be concise about it. We don't need to give each other high fives, We just need to keep going. But we're built for the final, even though we're doing a temp. So we do 8 days on temp 1, roughly 8 on temp 1. Each show's a little bit different. Temp 2, which is probably 2 or 3 weeks later, we knock out in about 3 days. So we probably will go through it in 2. We'll screen it the morning of the 3rd day, and then we'll do fixes the rest of the day. And then he'll have another screening that night or something. And then sometimes we'll do temp 3, which is another day or 2. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, we'll start the final mix. and that will run for 6 mixing weeks. So a lot of other shows, you'll do like a dialogue pre-dubbing week and 2 weeks of sound effects pre-dubbing, and then you'll have 15 days of final mixing or something like that. No, that's not how we do it. Through that structure of temp 1, 2, 3 into final mix, it is constantly what we would call a rolling mix. So everything is in unit form. Nothing is printed as a pre-dub. Nothing is committed. Everything is in its raw individual audio form, whether it's a part of the airplane, a part of the score, or a part of the dialogue. It doesn't matter. It is a unit, and we collectively as a crew want to be able to change any and every aspect of that unit at any point of our mix. That said, also, we don't want to assume that we're going to change it. We want to do an initial pass of it and then leave it until the moment we decide to change it again. So we want everything completely controllable, but we're not going to change it as we're going forward until we collectively decide that it's time to change this scene. And so we build out scenes in priority, basically. We do broad strokes in temp 1. We, make sure that the primary big complicated scenes are working. We make sure all the scenes are working, but it's a fast pass through on these temps. During the 6-week final, it's not uncommon for us to take the first week and do another pass of the film, screen it Friday morning. Second week, do another pass of the film, screen it the next Friday morning. I love that because you really get a chance to screen the film in its running length, in its dynamic, in a theatrical environment without the console in front of you, and understand the maturity, the progressive maturity of the mix as it's going. And you get to hear Chris's feedback and his impression. And that's my favorite moment of the process, is when Chris gets up, turns around, and you hear like the first sentence or two that comes out of his mouth. That's a moment that I get, and Greg gets, and Alex, and Hans, and the select group of us. And we don't really share. We don't share the information. We're working on something that's secure IP. But just in the history of filmmaking, to think, oh well, this moment has happened with Hitchcock. This moment has happened with Kubrick. I get to experience this moment with Chris when he gets up, turns around, and has an immediate reaction. I love this moment. What's he gonna say? This is great. And even if he's like, boy, we have a lot of work to do, which has happened, these are all works in progress. Like, great, which part? Let's do it. Let's sink. I love sinking my teeth back into it. Let's do it. Yeah, sure.
Well, that's always that nervousness at the end of like the playback, and you're like waiting, and there's that silence, and you're like,
well, see, now I twist that feeling of like, oh, what's he gonna say? Are we screwed? Are we dead? No, it's like, this is the moment that I live for. What is gonna come out of it? This is amazing. Even if it's a total meltdown, which it so rarely is, this is the moment when you get to watch that filmmaker have a reaction to his or her own film. Right. How precious is this moment? If you ever have that, maybe this is a good lesson. Like, take the anxiety that you may have at that moment and just make something positive out of it. Just twist that Rubik's Cube and make it all green. Make it good.
We have time for one more question.
We have a question on YouTube. Angie is a recording arts graduate, and she's asking if you have any advice to recent grads that are starting in the industry on how to transition from an entry-level position to making a name for yourself in LA.
Well, to making a name for yourself. There's a big stretch in between, and I hope, Angie, that you're not in this just to make a name for yourself. I hope you're in it because you love the craft, because you love this medium, because you love movies, because you're a fan, because your heart is in the game. Don't just do it for ego. If you're doing it for ego, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're doing it to hang out with rock stars, you're doing it for the wrong reason. Do it because you love it, and do it because you're passionate about it, and hang on to that. That, and there are some very simple fundamentals. You probably have heard it all week. Good hygiene is one. Have that. Entitlement, if you have it, lose it. Forget it. There's no room for it. There's no margin for it. Lose it. Lose it yesterday. Get the lunch order right. Nobody wants to eat lunch that is kind of close, but, it's okay. Really, it's not. Yeah. Get the lunch order right. If you're doing that kind of thing. Like, Be thorough. Focus on the things that are in front of you. Be thorough. Be passionate. Care. Know your environment. Know when you can ask questions. Know when you can't ask questions. Reserve your questions for the right moment. The mixer's working too. If you are assisting for a mixer, that person's, to some degree, may be feeling some pressure. Allow them that margin to deal with that pressure. Be helpful. Be helpful to them. Don't be overly helpful because then you're not helping. You got to feel out the circumstance. I don't know, I'm hoping those are some good answers.
I think they're all great things.
I see a couple more hands. I'll certainly hang out. I don't know if we have more time, how we're doing on time.
I believe we'll have a little bit of time out in the lobby to handle more questions.
I'll stick around as long as I need to out in the lobby. I'm not worried about that.
For right now, though, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to just sit and talk with me. I wish you the best in London for the BAFTAs.
At the BAFTAs,
and again,
that's right.
For the Oscars. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Rizzo.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I applaud you.